Namaste and welcome to all to this fourth lecture in our series, India, Our Mother. As part of Sri Aurobindo Society's celebrations for the 150th birth anniversary of Sri Aurobindo, this series of lectures is being jointly organized by Aurobharati, Society's vertical dedicated to studies on Indian culture, and Auroyagna, the vertical dedicated to integral yoga. I'm joined here by my colleagues from Auroyagna, Shweta, and also Biswajita and Ramkumar from Aurobharati. And we heartily welcome our speaker for this evening, Mr. Aravindan Neelakandan ji, and also all our audience members. So today, as many of us know, is a very special date, February 6th, the anniversary of Sri Aurobindo's return to India, the day he was greeted by his beloved Mother India with a deep spiritual experience that he later described as this vast calm that descended upon him. And as we know, yesterday, of course, was Basant Panchami, the day to invoke Ma Saraswati, the Vedic goddess about whom Sri Aurobindo speaks of as the power of truth audition, the impeller and awakener of true thoughts. And of course, February is indeed a very special month, the birthday month of our Jews Mayor, sweet mother. So it's indeed a wonderful, great blessing that today's lecture, we have a very befitting topic on divine feminine, and specifically divine feminine in Tamil literature. In just a minute or so, we'll formally introduce our speaker, Mr. Aravindan Neelakandan. But before that, let me personally welcome Aravindan ji with this evening and thank him for accepting our invitation for this event. I've had the pleasure of meeting him a few times and have always been inspired whenever I had a chance to listen to him or to read his wonderful writings. Many people here probably are already aware of his work, famous book, Breaking India. And a few years ago, interestingly, I had a chance to interview him for our e-journal Renaissance. And the theme that emerged there was very interesting, on making India. So if anybody is interested to read that interview from our archives, I'll put that link in our chat box. So may I now request Ram to introduce our speaker for this evening?
Aravindan Neelakandan is a prolific bilingual author, writing in English and Tamil, with his writings published in numerous magazines, journals, and media outlets. He is especially famous for the groundbreaking book, Breaking India, which he co-authored with Rajiv Malhotra, and which was in the list of top 10 bestseller books in India in 2011. Aravindan began his writing career with his articles on science and Indology in the famous Tamil portal Thinnai.com. He was a regular contributor of columns to UPA Asia and other Tamil magazines and newspapers. At present, he is also a contributing art editor at Swarajya magazine, and his writings mostly explore various aspects of Indian culture and contemporary challenges, as well as science, technology, and philosophy of science and history. And his science articles have been actually appreciated by eminent scientists like Fritjof Capra, Subhas Kak, and Richard Dawkins. And his writings and talks exploring themes in Tamil literature have been hugely appreciated. And we are really happy to invite him for this talk and in this lecture series of Aurobharati and Auroyagna. So I'm very much delighted to welcome Mr. Aravindan Neelakandan.
Thank you very much. So the topic today is about the divine feminine, particularly in the context of Tamil literature. Now, the word divine feminine is, there is a word called scientific temperament. Now, if you take this term scientific temper, actually, it has a particular history with respect to the West, where scientific temper was pitted against the religious dogmatism, the institutionalized religious dogmatism. The same way, this divine feminine is also a term that comes from the West, actually. because it sees divine feminine as a kind of an alternate spirituality to the patriarchal, more masculine, male-oriented, male-centric spiritual tradition that is dominant in the West. The case of India, it is not any alternative thing. This is the conventional spirituality. This is the basis. This is the common thing. And recently, there is a tendency to, recently in the sense in the last 200 years, almost, for the last 200 years, there has been a tendency strongly to portray Tamil culture as some kind of a different culture, a culture that is different from the entire Indian culture. And this particular effort has been successful to an extent. By looking into this divine feminine aspect of Tamil culture, we will be able to, in the literary tradition of Tamil, we will be able to see that this Tamil culture or Tamil traditions are part and parcel of the pan-Indic civilizational mosaic, the cultural mosaic, the cultural matrix of India. It is part and parcel of the cultural matrix of India. It is, you cannot remove Tamil culture and keep it separately, then it would be dead. If you remove Tamil culture from the entire Indian culture, then the Indian culture would lose some very important core of it. So either way, it is something like one of the vital organs of this organic body of Indian culture. You cannot separate it. If you separate it, it will be detrimental to both. Both of them can't survive. So now we will go into this particular topic of divine feminine in the context of Tamil literary tradition. You take the Tamil literary tradition, the oldest of them of the Sangam age. And in the Sangam age, we see these goddesses. Particularly, we see the goddess Uma. And Uma is said to sit in this grand, great mountain. And she is sitting there with the Siva, with the three eyes. And the eyes, particularly the eye is described as unblinking. That's a very interesting thing and an important thing, because as we see, these things are, they have, you can see them again and again coming, surfacing, manifesting themselves in the Indian context, in the entire Indian context, very independently, but at the same time in a very interconnected way. So it says, for example, Kalitogai says about Umay Amand Vilangum Imaya Mukkan. So this three-eyed Siva has unblinking eyes. And the goddess is also invoked along with another one god. She is the mother of the great Murugan. This is again and again stressed throughout the literature, Tamil literature. Whenever we go, it is told, whenever Murugan is talked about, Murugan's mother is glorified. Murugan's mother is so glorified, and then Murugan is talked about because he is her son. Vettivel por Kuttavai Sirva. Kuttavai is the name given in Tamil literature for the goddess. Now, this Kuttavai is worshipped in different places. There is a place called, in near Palani, there is a mountain called Turyadita mountain. The name of the mountain is Turyadita mountain. But what has happened is that the local people, they started calling it Turyadita, and slowly it became Turyodhana. So they started calling the mountain Turyodhana mountain. So Turyadita, from Turyadita, you got Duryodhana. And there is a mountain called Airai mountain near it. And that mountain became Ivar mountain because they created this localized pseudo-folk stories about the Pandavas coming there and staying, and Duryodhana coming there and staying, and all those kind of things. But this particular mountain is called Airai mountain. This mountain is mentioned in ancient Tamil literature where the goddess is there. The goddess lives there. And the Chera king goes there. Before he starts any war, he has to go there and worship her. Now, this is something, again, you will find a tradition that is present throughout India. And from time immemorial. In Mahabharata, you have Arjuna going and worshipping Durga. And there is Arjuna Krita Durga Stotra, which is very famous. in a way, it gives the template for later Bande Mataram song. It says, Namaste Siddha Senani, Arye Mantra Vasini, Kumari Kali Kabali, Kabile Krishna Pinkale, Patrakali Namastubhyam, Mahakali Namostude. It goes on. And the last lines are very interesting and important for us. Vedastruti Mahapunye, Brahmanye Jata Vedasi, Jambu Kataka Saityeshu Nityam Sanhidalage, Tvam Brahma Vidya Vidyanam, Mahanitra Satehinam, Skantamate Bhagavati. So she is the mother of Skanta. She is the Siddha Senani. And she is Arya. She is the one who is worshipped in each and every temple throughout Jambudvipa. You can see almost all these terms again surfacing in Vande Mataram of Bankim Chandra Chatterjee. And remember, Arjuna makes this worship before the goddess, before the war. Here, in Purananuru and in Sangam literature, you see that the kings, the Tamil kings, they go and they worship the goddess. Now, and another one aspect here, she is Jata Vedasi. She is there in the Agni. Now, you take the term Umai. Uma is called Umai in Tamil literature. And if you remember, Uma appears in Kena Upanishad when the Devas are deluded because of their victories with the Asuras. And they think that it is because of them, the little gods, the jealous gods, the gods of the little mind. They think that they are the ones who have acquired the victory. And then the goddess appears and gives them the Brahma Vidya. Makes them realize that without the Brahman, they can't do anything. Okay. Now, you remember this. Just put it on the side of your mind. There, she is called Uma. And here, in Tamil literature, she is called Umai. If you just go and do a small Google search, you will find something. Goddess Umai, you search Goddess Umai, and you will find that she is worshipped in Turkey. Even today. She is worshipped in Turkey and Mongolia. She is a very Central Asian goddess. And this term Umai is present in Tamil Nadu, in the Central Asian tribal areas in Turkey. Those areas, the tribals, despite the fact that superficially they have got converted to monotheistic religion, they consider Umai as the goddess who protects the children being in the umbilical cord, and she is the goddess who resides in the fire of the household. So the fire they use for cooking everything, it is a sacred fire. She is Jata Vedasi. So you have this, actually you have this sacred feminine everywhere in the world. It is not something unique to India. Now, we should never get into this this trap of from where did this origin. That is a typical, I would say, Western ontological question or Western creationist question. From where did this originate? It can originate everywhere simultaneously if it is truth. See, if gravitation is truth, then 2 or 3 civilizations can discover it. If gravitation is made up story, then only one culture that fabricated it would have it. In the same way, the divine feminine, you can see that it manifests everywhere, but only in India, it has just evolved to its maximum diversity and its maximum richness, only in India. Now, coming back here, you see that in the Sangam literature, it is very clear that the goddess resides everywhere. She resides in the royal insignia of the kings. So she is the one who is guiding the king in the correct, proper dharmic course. And later we come to see that when we come to Chilapadiharam, which is a very important epic, dramatic epic, which is ascribed to, traditionally it is told that a Jain Muni wrote this, but I have my doubts whether it was really a Jain Muni, because all the way the particular epic is taken and the course of the epic, everything is very Vedic, very Shaktic, you can say that. So here there is a very beautiful scenario. The Kannagan, you'll be knowing the story, Kannagi and Kovalan, they had got into some troubled times, and so they were going. from Chora Desa, they are going to the Pandya Desa, and in between there is a forest. And when they are going through the forest, they are seeing the tribal people, the tribal community worshipping the goddess. The entire worship of the goddess, the tribal community's worship of the goddess is portrayed in a very detailed way by Ilangodigal. And here you can see that a wonderful lyrical expression is given. And she is told, it is said to us that she has this red coral lips and her whitish smile. At the same time, her throat is black because she had swallowed the poison. Now you can see that the qualities of Shiva, the defining qualities of Shiva, they are being now ascribed to the goddess, Aravindan Neelakandan. So she has this bow, which is the axis mundi of the universe, the Meru, the mountain. That is her bow, and the bowstring is the cosmic serpent Vasuki. And she is wearing this skin of the elephant, and also she is wearing on her upper body the skin of tiger. All these are feats done by Shiva. And all these are here ascribed to the goddess. And then she is told that she was the one who killed Mahishasura. Now, if you look at it carefully, in Mahabharata, the Mahishasura was killed by Skanda. Here, so see, this point here is, if you are trained in Western Indology, or if you are trained in Western Indology, the colonized Indian Indology, you would be talking about how from the patriarchal, the matriarchal came and all those kind of things. But here there is nothing like that. It is a kind of a fluidity. The goddess can become the god can become the goddess, and they are all one, united. And here she is worshipped by these tribal people. Now, remember this, the poet puts these words in the mouth of the tribal people who are worshipping her. A particular priestess is there. Her name is Shalini. And this goddess has come into her. And she is the one who is pouring out the worship hymns. And here it is said that she is the Amari. She is the immortal one, Amari, Kumari, Gauri, Samari, the warrior goddess, Samari. The Samar is war. Samari is the warrior goddess. Suli, Neeli, Mal, Kilangile. She is the younger sister of Vishnu. So all the Puranic aspects of the goddess are also told. Her defining characters are told. Then the defining characters of Shiva are also ascribed to her. And at last this says that she is, this particular woman is praising her. That woman is right now the goddess herself. And remember, it is in this form of a girl that the eternal girl is there. That is how they say. Amarilang Kumari. Kumari kolat Amarilang Kumari. Now, here is a very nuanced, very subtle, but very powerful twist given here. The form of a girl is the eternal girl. So in Tamil, when you read this, actually, Kumari Kolathu, now this goddess, the altered consciousness of the goddess, it comes into this girl and it will go away. The girl is going to be there, but this altered state of consciousness is going to go away. So we would think that the poet would like to talk of the girl as a very solid person, the shamanic priestess as the very solid person, and this altered state of consciousness as a kind of an ephemeral thing. But what the poet does is, he says, this young form of this priestess, the shamanic priestess, Shalini, that is the passing phase, that is the ephemeral thing. This altered state of consciousness of the goddess, it is going to be there forever. Today Shalini comes, tomorrow some other girl comes, 2000 years ago, some other girl comes, but this altered state of consciousness is going to be there. It is the eternal young consciousness of the goddess. It is going to be there, whereas this physical girl, she is ephemeral. She may come and go. So this particular twist is there. Nitya Yavana, that is how Lalita Sahasranama talks of the goddess. So here you see that Amar Ilang Kumari, that is almost the same term for Nitya Yavana he is using here. And then he says another one aspect, that not only the Shiva's characters are there in the goddess. There is also, he says, the poet says, you are the one who kicked down the demonic wheel Asura, who was sent by your cunning uncle. Now, this is, as you know, the deed of Sri Krishna. Now, the Sri Krishna's defining character, as well as the deeds of Shiva, both are given to the goddess. Again, I will tell you, just put it there in your mind, that both Shiva and the Vishnu, both are united in the goddess in this form. And then comes a very wonderful lines in this hymn. I would say, I have always, whenever I get a chance to talk about this, I say that this should form the basis of our social sciences. We have always been made to think in terms of binary, conflicting binary. For example, you tell that there is the tribal and the non-tribal. There is this Brahminical and non-Brahminical. There is this folk and there is the mainstream. The upper culture, the classical culture and the folk. The classical culture and the tribal. Here, the poet gives us a framework. He says, ஆனை தோல் போர்த்து புலியின் உரியுடுத்து காணத்து எருமை கருந்தலைமேல் நின்றாயால் வானோர் வணங்க மறைமேல் மறையாகி ஞான கொழுந்தாய் நடுக்கின்றியே நின்றாய். Let me translate this. She is wearing the skin of the hide of the elephant. And she is wearing the skin of the tiger. And she is standing on the head of the wild buffalo. She had cut off the head of the wild buffalo and she is standing on that. That is a very tribal, ferocious, tribal goddess. Those are the first two lines. Very clear tribal goddess. The second two lines, Vano Mananga, the celestials are worshipping you. Maraimel Marayagi, the end of the Vedas, which is the Vedanta, the Upanishads, that is Maraimel Marai. On the scriptures is the Upanishad, and on the Upanishad, she is standing. Jnana, how she is standing? She is standing as the flame of gnosis. She is standing as the flame of wisdom, the Chaitanya. She is standing as the flame of consciousness. In the basis, on what she is standing? The goddess who was standing on the head of the wild buffalo, the same goddess is also standing as the flame of consciousness in the end of all the scriptures. The end of all the sacred scriptures, she is standing there. Now, these two lines, they are the lines that contain the essence of Vedanta, the essence of Indian culture itself. And those two lines, they are very specific tribal characteristics of the goddess. Both are contained. Both are contained in the same four lines. And this gives us the framework for understanding our culture. And this is the divine feminine framework. A framework that unites the seemingly opposite characteristic feature, the complementary way of looking at things. And as we go, we find that there is an interlude. From the Sankam literature to the Bhakti literature, if you see, there is a kind of a dark period in which the very moralistic, very dogmatic, yet indigenous religious structures are taken over. And because of that, certain occupations were considered as untouchable occupations. For example, hunting, fishermen, those culture and the people who sing and dance. So because the Jainism and Buddhism, they saw, they were very moralistic religions, and they were dogmatically based on kind of an imposed nonviolence. And because of that, these traditional, these occupations, of course, these occupations, and as all occupations were in all pre-modern societies, mostly they were hereditary. So these groups, they were kind of sidelined, and these kind of things came. Along with this also came the degradation of women. Because if you look at it very carefully, even if you are allowed to be in the Sangha, you have to be subservient to the male monk. So if a woman who is in the Sangha, a nun, the Buddhist nun, wants to go out, she has to get the permission of the head monk. If suppose the head monk is not there, what he would do is he would leave his upper garment on the inside the monastery. The woman monk has to go and ask permission from that upper garment, and she has to go out. And of course, in the case of the Jain Tirthankaras, initially the women were not there. Even if a woman was there, she was born as a woman because of a mistake she has done in the previous birth, and all those kind of things. So the point is, despite the fact that there is this impersonal realization of Buddhahood or whatever, still it was a kind of male-oriented. And it is not because of the religion itself, but it is because of the particular social structure or whatever, the historical setup, whatever. But when the Vedic religious renaissance came, it was started by Karakala Mayar and Tringana Samandar. And Tringana Samandar particularly, when he started, he first talked about the year of Shiva. Which year of Shiva? If you go and look at the bronze sacred bodies of the Shiva, particularly the Chola bronze, you can see one very interesting thing is that there is this asymmetry. In the 1 year and the next year, the 2 years, the 2 year rings would be different, because one belongs to the male and the other belongs to the female. So when Tringana Samandar starts his Devaram, the first song, he is talking about the female side earring of Shiva, Todudaiye Shivi. That is because, according to tradition, it was the goddess who came and gave him the milk of gnosis. So naturally it is Todudaiye Shivi. So first itself he defines the god by Shiva by his feminine aspect, the feminine side of Shiva, and the Ardhanarishwara. And whenever he sings, he points out that here is a religion, here is a spiritual tradition that takes into consideration the feminine and accepts the feminine. So there is this very, very important, very beautiful song. Mannil nalla vannam vaalalam, vaigalum ennil nallagadi yadumor kuraivilai. Kannil nalla durum kalumala valanagar pennil nallalodu perundagai irundhathu. The meaning is, Mannil nalla vannam vaalalam. You can live. You don't have to think of obtaining a Buddhahood or going to heaven somewhere in the other world. It is not an otherworldly thing. Right here, in this world, you can live happily. You can live a very good life. You don't have to become a monk. If you actually are a person who is capable of thinking, then you will understand that the world is full of good opportunities. The world is full of opportunities for your liberation. Why? Because here is my Lord with the best of the women. He is seated with the best of the women. And so you can be sure of his compassion. If he is only a male person, then that is a problematic, it is a problematic thing. He will be thinking about whether you are really qualified or not for getting your salvation. But here is Shiva with with Parvati, who is compassion itself. And so surely you will be able to get salvation. Where? Not in an afterworld. Here, right now, here in this world. Then Another person is Karikalamaya. Karakalamaya's story, I don't have to go into it. It's a very famous story. She was a woman who was a daughter of a merchant, married to a merchant. And if you look at the way she has sang, the kind of knowledge she has, it's so fantastic. One of her favorite scenario where she sets her songs is the crematorium, where there is the pyres are burning. The cremation is happening all the time. That Shiva is dancing. And she says, and she describes it in a very, it is a wonder actually. If really a proper survey of literature is made in the world, Karakalamaya's poetry should be considered as the best poetry in the world. Because think about a place where dead bodies are burning, ghouls and other kind of demonic creatures are here and there. She is able to describe it with such beauty and such symbolism. For example, she says, there is this female ghost, Pei. It was sitting there in a very comfortable posture. It has put both its legs inside a cactus that is growing in the funeral pyre. And it was here and here, it wanted to beautify itself. It took a small burning stick because the embers were there inside. Outside, it was filled with the ashes. So it thought that it was very nice. It is with this black suit. And so it took it and started to beautify itself. And once this burning pyre touched its head, it realized that there is fire. And the fire was burning its eyes and it started shrieking. And if you just think about this, this is what Karikalamaya talks about, the way the night, the cremation ground was. If you think about it, we are all like that. We are living in our own comfort zones. And actually the comfort zone is made of the cactus thorns. We don't think about that because we are in a very comfortable way. And we want to always beautify ourselves. And when we may be beautifying it with our knowledge, or we may be beautifying it in a physical way, whatever. As we are beautifying ourselves, a point comes when we realize that all this beautification is actually hurting me. It is only bringing me pain. Then you shout, take your leg, then you realize that your actual comfort zone is consisting of the cactus thorns, which are actually piercing your body. And you are suffering like anything. And in that crematorial ground, in that cremation ground, if you think about it, our entire life, look around us, look at ourselves. We are all in a cremation ground. Tomorrow we are going to be burnt, or today we are going to be burnt, or we are all dying. We are all in the process of dying, in different levels of burning. And we are beautifying ourselves and we are enjoying ourselves, and all this becomes beautiful the minute you look at the dance of Shiva. The cremation, it is the same cremation ground, but look at the dance of Shiva, then it changes. So this is what she talks about. And then she makes a very beautiful statement in her Arpuda Tiruvandadi. This is a form that she has given. Andadi means the last word and the first word, they will be the same. So here she says, one part, Urupal Ulakalanda Malavanam, Matai Urupal Umayavalam, என்றால் இருபாலும் நின்னுருவா திறன் தெரிய மாட்டோமால் நின்னுருவோ மின்னுருவோ நேர்ந்து. Point is, in one side, if I look at you, you are the goddess. The other side, you are Vishnu, who measured the world. So if I look at you on both sides, you are feminine, yet you are a male. How is it possible? She is wondering. Now this form, this particular form, if you just go and search again, do an image Google search about Krishna and Kali united, you can see this form again and again everywhere in Bengal. And then I discovered something else also, that in Janaganamana there are a lot of stanzas. Apart from the first stanza that is adopted, because we were told that Vande Mataram was, filled with this goddess imagery. So let us take it off and let us have Janakanamana. So it is very patriarchal, like it's full of the male god, Bharata Bhagya Vidhata and all that. So it is acceptable most probably to Abrahamic religion people also. So we have made it. But then the next it comes, He Sirasaradi Davarada Chakra Mugarita Patatin Ratri Daruna Viplava Maje Dava Sangadvani Baje Sangada Tukatratha. Now, this particular stand, we can very clearly see that it is talking about Krishna. It is talking about Vishnu. We can see that who is the Srirata Saradi and whose Sangadvani removes the hurdles and the problems. And in the next line, he is talking about, in the next stanza, Abhisala Mangala Nada Nagina Nimeshe Sneha Mahitumi Mata. So here he is talking about the unblinking eye, ever watching unblinking eye of Sneha Mahi Mata. So in one stanza, he is talking about Krishna as the Radha Sarathi. In the next stanza, he is talking about the unblinking eye, the ever-watching unblinking eye of the goddess. Both are united. And if you go to the last line, it talks about Raja Rajeshwara, which is actually the word that we give for Mahadeva, Shiva. So think about it. Karika Lamayar, who lived most probably in the 5th century, 1500 years ago, she has a vision of Shiva as part Vishnu and part Sakti. And then you have a Rabindranath Tagore who had never read Karika Lamayar. He was having a vision when he was staying in the Theosophical Society building in Andhra Pradesh at that time. And he was having this vision and he burst into this song. And in that song comes this image of Vishnu and the Sakti. And look at this particular term. This is a term that is used again and again. Imaya Natam. Imaya Natam means the unblinking eye of the goddess. When we talk about Meenakshi, why she is called Meenakshi? Because her eyes are like the fish. Not only that, because she has the unblinking eyes of the fish that always takes care of her children. The same terminology again manifests itself in the lines of Rabindranath Tagore. How is this possible? This is the civilizational reality, the existential reality of the sacred feminine in India. For others, it may be an alternate spirituality, but here in India, this is the basis. It is in this basis that we can build anything. And if you remove this basis, nothing exists. That is how it has been here in India. So when we come to the others, for example, I will straight away I will leave certain of the poems because poets, because of the time constraint. I will come to Subramania Bharati, modern times, very modern times. So here, right before Subramania Bharati, one important person I have to talk about is Abhirami Bhatta. So Abhirami Bhatta's real name is Subramanian, and he was considered as a kind of a madman at that time. You could have seen the movies and all. He lived during the time of Sarfoji Maharaja, who was actually being taught all the Western, that was the time when the colonization was starting actually. So the story is that Sarfoji Maharaja came after a ceremonial bath on Amavasya, new moon day. And here Subramaniam was sitting in the Abhirami temple of Tirukadavur and he was meditating before the goddess. And he was so immersed in goddess and his inner eye was filled with the beauty of goddess that was like 1,000 million moon beams. So this person comes and people tell this guy is a mad guy who is not living, and just to test his sanity, the king asked him, what is the Tithi today? So this is Amavasya, very obviously. This guy says it's Paurnami, full moon day, because he was immersed in the beauty of the goddess. The king got angry. He again asked, and again he said, please don't disturb me, go away. I am immersed in this, and today is Paurnami. And so the king got angry and told that if by today evening, tonight, if the moon does not come, then you will be put on fire. And then he sang this song, 70 songs. of Abhirami Antadi, and then goddess took her earring and she threw it, and it became a moon. Now, this is a false story, but it contains a particular historical truth. The truth is this: the colonial knowledge were entering India at that time. And there is obviously a clash between the way we see the inner cosmos and the way everything is being objectivized, and everything has to be seen as a physical reality, a tangible reality. So there is a clash of these civilizational knowledge systems. And here, Sarfoji Maharaja was a person who encouraged the European sciences. He even wrote, in fact, you could say that Sarfoji Maharaja was the first popular science writers in India. He wrote a book on heliocentric theory and all those kind of things. He was a person of knowledge, but at the same time, he was very much influenced by European knowledge system. So you have this story that tells that this is not the only way to look at reality. There can be an inner reality, and that inner reality can have much strong base. And so whatever happened, we don't know what happened, but whatever happened, it gave us Abhirami Antadi, a very beautiful mystic poetry. And here we talk about the expanding universe. We talk about the contracting universe, expanding universe, oscillating universe, and all things. Here, the poet gives Abhirami Bhatta. He is called Abhirami Bhatta because of his great love for the goddess Abhirami. He gives a very, very wonderful way of looking at the universe. He tells about a flowering universe. So he says, Unjai Arumbi, Palavai Virindu, Ulakengumai Ninjal, Anithiyum Ningi Nirpal, Yenda Nenjule, Unjad Nindu Purikintava. So he says, she is the one, a bud. And she becomes this universe, flowering into this universe. Attale, Ingal Abhirama Valli, Andamelam Puttale. She flowers into this universe. If you can go and search in the Google about J. Krishnamurti and David Bohm talking, at one particular point, David Bohm or J. Krishnamurti, they tell about this universe of flowering into itself. Now, that is a talk between a theoretical physicist and a pop philosopher, a great philosopher. Now you have that term here. And at another one place he says, if I think about it, you are nothing but empty space. And from that empty space come the physical elements. From the physical universe arises from that empty space. And you are the maternal expanse of this physical universe. So this is almost a cosmology being sung in the form of praise of the goddess. Then we come to Bharati, Subramania Bharati. And in Subramania Bharati, you see another interesting thing. In between, I left out another person called Kumara Gurubara. Kumara Gurubara, he lived before Abhirami Bhatta actually. He is also basically a devotee of Muruga, Skanda, and he wrote Pillai Tamil. Pillai Tamil is essentially you conceive the goddess or the god you worship as a child. And then a child has different developmental stages. Jean Piaget arrived at it at a particular point of time in the 20th century, but in India, there's a literary technique. We have thought of the different stages of a child's development related to the way the parents enjoy it also. So it is not just the actions of the child, but also the response it evokes in the parents. And then it is poured out in the form of poetry. So there are 10 stages for the male child, 10 stages for the female child. There are some differences in between. One of this is the small children used to play with the small crystal balls. So the goddess, here it is about the Meenakshi. Goddess Meenakshi is a small child and she plays with this crystal ball. She throws these small crystals and she catches it. You can see that in the countryside, the girls even today play. They throw this and they will catch it. Now this small crystal ball is going up. And when it is passing through her hair, it looks like it is a black pearl. when it is passing through her teeth, it looks like it is a white pearl. But when it passes through her hands, because her hand is very red, it looks like red ruby. So each at a particular instant, a person sees that, he says that it is a black pearl. Then another person says, no, it is a white pearl. Another person says it is a red ruby. It is like every religionist calling his own religious theology as the ultimate truth, without realizing that it is all part and parcel of the play of the divine feminine. So this is what Kumar Gurubarar says. Now we come to Bharati. Bharati interestingly tries to, Bharati is basically a Shautic poet. He's everything as the goddess. And today we are talking, when we talk about divine feminine, naturally you will talk about Dan Brown's novel of Da Vinci Code and Mary Magdalene and all that. Bharati, even then he talked about it. He said, Penmaikan Maria Magdalena, Penum Nallaram Yesu Christu. He tried to internalize the entire Jesus narrative, not as a historical event, but he wanted to see the Jesus narrative as a kind of an internalized spiritual process. So he says, the body with all its bad elements, it dies. And after 3 days, the real spirit emerges. And these 3 days, taking care of the whole process is this feminine principle called Magdalena. So he puts Magdalena and Jesus as two sides of the same coin, long before Dan Brown wrote this, but in a very deeper way. That is one. And he also had this advantage of looking at the universe through the modern scientific developments. And he sang this. Kalamam vanathil anda kolamam marathi meedu Kali Sakti enja peyar kondu ringarammittu lavum oru vandu. Now, the Kali Sakti is the basic primal consciousness. We have seen how time is being described by many people. Time is seen as a line, time is seen as an arrow, time is seen as a river, and all these kind of things you can see. Time is shown as a fluid thing in that famous magical realist paintings. You can see all that. But here, for the first time, Bharati visualizes time as a forest. Time as a forest in which the universe is a single tree. So there are multiple universes, and all these universes are kind of emanations of a mega time. And what brings all this to life? It is Kali Sakti, a small fly, a beetle. It makes this ringara sound and it moves inside. It makes this ringara sound and it moves inside. And it makes the entire universe to come to life. And this has the 6 Attvas. The 6th Attvas has its 6 legs. Insects have 6 legs, and so the biological classification is hexapoda. Now, these 6 legs are the 6 Attvas. These Attvas are Mantram, Patam, Varnam, Bhuvanam, Tattvam, Kalai. Of this, the first 3 Attvas are called the informational Attvas, and the 3 Attvas are the physical universes. The first 3 Attvas are the informational universes. And that is why in Lalita Sahasranama, you have the last, when you come, Shadatvati, the Rubini. She is the 6 Attvas. She is beyond the 6 Attvas, and Bharati visualizes the goddess as an insect with the 6 Attvas as her legs. And he says again that this the sky and the physical universe that you see are all the flood of energy. And this energy itself is a kind of a solid thing. So he changes it. Usually we consider energy as a flow and matter as solid. He says matter is a flow and energy is kind of a solid thing. So he inverses all the imageries and he presents, and he says all this is nothing but the goddess. Then how do we relate ourselves to the goddess? Well, he says goddess is this aganta arivu. Aganta arivu means an undivided cognition, undivided gnosis. And our own arivu is a small movement on the gnosis. So this is how, this is a very small snapshot, a very superficial snapshot of how divine feminine is revealed in Tamil literature. I have left out a lot. So any mistakes in this, I request your apologies. I think with this, I will stop. Thank you very much. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Aravindanji. You say you have given a brief snapshot, but to be very frank and honest here, someone like me who has grown up and studied all the formal education in North India, most of this is all very new information, except that I've had the privilege of listening to you a few times at Kalarigram and a few other places, and having read some of your writings and others' writings. You have really given, starting from Sangam age to Subramaniam Bharti, you really, in this brief snapshot, covered a lot of ground and given a very good orientation to this whole theme that we have picked up for this session. But I also really appreciate how you are, you started off with this whole idea that how integral the divine feminine is to the Indian view of spirituality, or to Indian spirituality, and how Tamil culture is not something separate, but an integral part of that whole tradition, that whole religio-spiritual tradition, of which the sacred feminine is the basis. So that I really appreciated. So I know some of our audience members may have some questions. So if there are any questions or comments, please unmute yourself and share with our speaker if you have a question. Or and I see there are some chat messages also, so we can read through that as well. But please, if there is any comment or question from any of the audience members, please feel free to share at this point.
Pranams to everyone. Very first time I am listening to you, Aravindanji. It was such an awesome session, and why you completed within 45 minutes? We are all here waiting to listen to more. And when you said about Karekal Ammayar and Bharatiyar and Kumaraburgura, it's all complete goosebumps. The children of this millennium, they don't have an opportunity to learn. At least we being studied in school 20-25 years before, we had an opportunity to listen to these names. But my children, they don't have the opportunity to listen to these names. And I feel greatly blessed to listen to you today. And when you said Shadatva Rupini and the 6 legs and the for the bee, it was awesome.
Thank you so much.
எனக்கு என்ன கேக்குறதுலாம் தெரியல, but I am awestruck. Excellent. I will start following your books and your lectures. Thank you so much.
Yes, please do. Again, I think, you wrote that book, Breaking India, but every time I hear you, it is the theme that keeps emerging is integrating, uniting India. So this is something really awesome. So thank you so much for bringing that spirit again and again in every way. We have a few comments here from Vijay, feeling blessed to attend this session. And also somebody is saying the inner light, like Tirukural, you sparkle, Aravindanji. So thank you so much.
Namaste, Arvindji. I'm Uma from Aurobindo. I'm very happy to hear. And your talk again revealed to the people how Indians and Tamil culture is imbibed spirituality in everyday life. It is not aloof. We live the life of a higher conscious living, what Sri Aurobindo says. So I like Abhirami Bhatta's the conviction that Shakti is there. And he showed to people in spite of the colonial start, because nowadays we see it is very highly, it's a task, it's very, very, difficult task to prove there is something beyond is there and it is guiding us. You showed that this is very, because we know like what you said about Umay, Meenakshi, that all centuries back. But during colonial period, when it is about to start its rule, to show people the belief that we should have in the higher power, we need that. We need that revival again. And thanks, you have to come to Auroville and you have to give lot of talks like this. And we are inviting you on behalf of Auroville. And it's not worthy to call you, but as a, what to say, I'm not that prominent one, but ardent aspiration is there inside. And thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And Beluji, as usual, beautiful sessions from Aro Bharati, Aro Yagna, everything. Thank you from Sri Aurobindo Society. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Uma. I couldn't tell it is you. So good you could join. And I think maybe Ram, I don't remember if Ram mentioned that, but Aravindanji is also on the governing board of Auroville Foundation, if I'm correct, right?
Okay,
So,
okay.
Yes, he is now part of Auroville governance structure as well. So,
then we are very blessed. Thank you.
So new direction in Auroville that way also.
I think once again, Aravindanji, I'm so much thankful for you to accepting this invitation. And I think this was my very first introduction to Tamil literature in this way. And that too, I think from such an eminent or well-studied personality like you. And being a Maharashtrian, I really feel now that why in my school days, there was no single Tamil poem was included in my curriculum. I really feel that the India has to become one while exchanging and introducing the interstate literatures to our students. So, and I must say, at personal level, you have inspired me to learn Tamil now. And I think through few poems, I'm going to learn it. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Yes. Really, we could not have started this month of February with anything better than this lecture. And the connection between Subramaniam Bharti and Sri Aurobindo, and how the mother figure is so central to integral yoga. So thank you so much, Aravindanji. In the interest of time, I will close this session now with a really heartfelt thanks. And
I should express my gratitude for this opportunity that you have given. It's really a fulfilling thing. I don't know whether I have done justice to the subject, but I hope. Thank you so much.
Like you said, it's such a vast subject. Yes. So maybe in the coming months, we'll have you again, and we'll go a little deeper into, especially the Silapadikaram. That's something I'm very fascinated with. So yes. We'll see how it goes. But once again, anyone, if there are any comments, we can always contact Aravindanji later on. But thank you so much for giving us your time.
Thank you.
Namaste. And we'll close the session now. Thank you, everyone, for joining.